The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, or Republic of Both Nations, formerly the Kingdom of Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. After 1791, the Commonwealth of Poland was a dualistic state, a biconfederation, of Poland and Lithuania ruled by a common monarch, who was both the King of Poland and the Grand Duke of Lithuania. It was one of the largest and most populous countries of 16th and 17th century Europe. At its peak in the early 17th century, the Commonwealth spanned some 450,000 square miles and sustained a multi-ethnic population of 11 million. The union was formalized by the Union of Lublin in July 1569, but the Crown of the Kingdom of Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania were in a de facto personal union since 1386 with the marriage of the Polish Queen Jadwiga of Poland and Lithuania's Grand Duke Jogaila, who was crowned king during Uxorus Vladislav II Jagiello of Poland. The first partition of Poland in 1772 and the second partition of Poland in 1793 greatly reduced the nation's size, and the Commonwealth disappeared as an independent state following the third partition of Poland in 1795. The Union possessed many features unique among contemporary states. Its political system was characterized by strict checks upon monarchical power. These checks were enacted by a legislature controlled by the nobility. This idiosyncratic system was a precursor to modern concepts of democracy, constitutional monarchy, and federation. The two component states of the Commonwealth were formally equal, yet Poland was the dominant partner in the Union. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was marked by high levels of ethnic diversity and by relative religious tolerance, guaranteed by the Warsaw Confederation Act 1573. However, the degree of religious freedom varied over time. After several decades of prosperity, it entered a period of protracted political, military and economic decline. Its growing weakness led to its partitioning among its neighbors, Austria, Prussia and the Russian Empire, during the late 18th century. Shortly before its demise, the Commonwealth adopted a massive reform effort and enacted the Constitution of May 3, 1791, the first codified constitution in modern European history and the second in modern world history. Name. The official name of the state was the Kingdom of Poland and the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. In the 17th century and later it was usually known as the Most Serene Commonwealth of Poland, the Commonwealth of the Polish Kingdom, or the Commonwealth of Poland. The country was also known as the Kingdom of Poland, or just Poland. Its inhabitants referred to it in everyday speech as the Rich Pospolita. Western Europeans often simply called it Poland. The terms, the Commonwealth of Poland and the Commonwealth of Two Nations, were used in the reciprocal guarantee of two nations. In historiography commonly referred to as Rich Pospolita Śląska, or as I Rich Pospolita. History. Poland and Lithuania underwent an alternating series of wars and alliances during the 14th century and early 15th century. Several agreements between the two were struck before the permanent 1569 Union of Lublin. This agreement was one of the signal achievements of Sigismund II Augustus, last monarch of the Jagiellon dynasty. Sigismund believed he could preserve his dynasty by adopting elective monarchy. His death in 1572 was followed by a 3-year interregnum during which adjustments were made to the constitutional system. These adjustments significantly increased the power of the Polish nobility and established a truly elective monarchy. The Commonwealth reached its golden age in the early 17th century. Its powerful parliament was dominated by nobles who were reluctant to get involved in the 30 Years' War. This neutrality spared the country from the ravages of a political religious conflict which devastated most of contemporary Europe. The Commonwealth was able to hold its own against Sweden, the Tsardom of Russia, and vassals of the Ottoman Empire, and even launched successful expansionist offensives against its neighbors. In several invasions during the time of troubles, Commonwealth troops entered Russia and managed to take Moscow and hold it from September 27, 1610, to November 4, 1612, until they were driven out after a siege. Commonwealth power began waning after a series of blows during the following decades. A major rebellion of Ukrainian Cossacks in the southeastern portion of the Commonwealth began in 1648. It resulted in a Ukrainian request, under the terms of the Treaty of Pereyaslav, for protection by the Russian Tsar. Russian annexation of part of Ukraine gradually supplanted Polish influence. The other blow to the Commonwealth was a Swedish invasion in 1655, known as the Deluge, which was supported by troops of Transylvanian Duke George II Rakoczy and Frederick William, Elector of Brandenburg. In the late 17th century, the weakened Commonwealth's King John III Sobieski allied himself with Leopold I to deal crushing defeats to the Ottoman Empire. In 1683, the Battle of Vienna marked the final turning point in the 250-year struggle between the forces of Christian Europe and the Islamic Ottoman Empire. For its centuries-long opposition to Muslim advances, the Commonwealth would gain the name of Antimural Christianitatis. During the next 16 years, the Great Turkish War would drive the Turks permanently south of the Danube River, never again to threaten Central Europe. By the 18th century, destabilization of its political system brought Poland to the brink of civil war. The Commonwealth was facing many internal problems and was vulnerable to foreign influences. An outright war between the king and the nobility broke out in 1715, and Tsar Peter the Great's mediation put him in a position to further weaken the state. The Russian army was present at the Silence Sejm of 1717, which limited the size of the armed forces to 24,000 and specified its funding, reaffirmed the destabilizing practice of liberum veto, and banished the king's Saxon army. The Tsar was to serve as guarantor of the agreement. Western Europe's increasing exploitation of resources in the Americas rendered the Commonwealth's supplies less crucial. In 1768, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth became a protectorate of the Russian Empire. Control of Poland was central to Catherine the Great's diplomatic and military strategies. Attempts at reform, such as the four-year Sejm's May Constitution, came too late. The country was partitioned in three stages by the neighboring Russian Empire, the Kingdom of Prussia, and the Habsburg monarchy. By 1795, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth had been completely erased from the map of Europe. Poland and Lithuania were not re-established as independent countries until 1918. State organization and politics. Golden Liberty. The political doctrine of the Commonwealth was, our state is a republic under the presidency of the king. Chancellor Jan Zamoyski summed up to this doctrine when he said that rex regnate non governate. The Commonwealth had a parliament, the Sejm, as well as a senate, and an elected king. The king was obliged to respect citizens' rights specified in King Henry's articles as well as in Pacta Conventa, negotiated at the time of his election. The monarch's power was limited, in favor of a sizable noble class. Each new king had to pledge to uphold the Henrician Articles, which were the basis of Poland's political system. Over time, the Henrician Articles were merged with the Pacta Conventa, specific pledges agreed to by the king-elect. From that point onwards, the king was effectively a partner with the noble class and was constantly supervised by a group of senators. The Sejm could veto the king on important matters, including legislation, foreign affairs, declaration of war, and taxation. The foundation of the Commonwealth's political system, the Golden Liberty, included election of the king by all nobles wishing to participate, known as wolne elekcja. Sejm of the Commonwealth Parliament, which the king was required to hold every 2 years. Pacta Conventa, agreed to agreements, negotiated with the king-elect, including a Bill of Rights, binding on the king, derived from the earlier Henrician Articles. Religious freedom guaranteed by Warsaw Confederation Act 1573. Rockers, the right of Szlachta to form a legal rebellion against a king who violated their guaranteed freedoms. Liberum veto, the right of an individual Sejm deputy to oppose a decision by the majority in a Sejm session. The voicing of such a free veto nullified all the legislation that had been passed at that session. During the crisis of the second half of the 17th century, Polish nobles could also use the liberum veto in provincial sejmiks. Confederacja, the right to form an organization to force through a common political aim. The three regions of the Commonwealth enjoyed a degree of autonomy. Each voivodeship had its own parliament, which exercised serious political power, including choice of proposal to the National Sejm and charging of the deputy with specific voting instructions. The Grand Duchy of Lithuania had its own separate army, treasury, and most other official institutions. Golden Liberty created a state that was unusual for its time, although somewhat similar political systems existed in the contemporary city-states like the Republic of Venice. Interestingly, both states were styled Serenissima Respublika, or the Most Serene Republic. At a time when most European countries were headed towards centralization, absolute monarchy and religious and dynastic warfare, the Commonwealth experimented with decentralization, confederation and federation, democracy and religious tolerance. This political system, unusual for its time, stemmed from the ascendance of the Szlachta noble class over other social classes and over the political system of monarchy. In time, the Szlachta accumulated enough privileges that no monarch could hope to break the Szlachta's grip on power. The Commonwealth's political system is difficult to fit into a simple category, but it can be tentatively described as a mixture of confederation and federation, with regard to the broad autonomy of its regions. It is, however, difficult to decisively call the Commonwealth either confederation or federation, as it had some qualities of both. Oligarchy, as only the Szlachta, around 15% of the population, had political rights. Democracy, since all the Szlachta were equal in rights and privileges, and the Sejm could veto the king on important matters, including legislation, foreign affairs, declaration of war, and taxation. Also, the 15% of Commonwealth population who enjoyed those political rights was a substantially larger percentage than in majority European countries even. In the 19th century, note that in 1820 in France only about 1.5% of the male adult population had the right to vote, and in 1840 in Belgium, only about 5%. Elective monarchy, since the monarch, elected by the Szlachta, was head of state. Constitutional monarchy, since the monarch was bound by Pacta Conventa and other laws, and the Szlachta could disobey any king's decrees they deemed illegal. Shortcomings. The end of the Jagiellon dynasty in 1572, after nearly 2 centuries, disrupted the fragile equilibrium of the Commonwealth's government. Power increasingly slipped away from the central government to the nobility. When presented with periodic opportunities to fill the throne, the Szlachta exhibited a preference for foreign candidates who would not found another strong dynasty. This policy often produced monarchs who were either totally ineffective or in constant debilitating conflict with the nobility. Furthermore, aside from notable exceptions such as the able Transylvanian Stefan Batory, the kings of foreign origin were inclined to subordinate the interests of the Commonwealth to those of their own country and ruling house. This was especially visible in the policies and actions of the first 2 elected kings from the Swedish House of Vasa, whose politics brought the Commonwealth into conflict with Sweden, culminating in the war known as the Deluge, one of the events that marked the end of the Commonwealth's golden age and the beginning of the Commonwealth's decline. Zebrodowski rebellion marked a substantial increase in the power of the Polish magnates, and the transformation of Szlachta democracy into magnate oligarchy. The Commonwealth's political system was vulnerable to outside interference, as Sejm deputies bribed by foreign powers might use their liberum veto to block attempted reforms. This sapped the Commonwealth and plunged it into political paralysis and anarchy for over a century, from the mid-17th century to the end of the 18th, while its neighbours stabilised their internal affairs and increased their military might. Late reforms. The Commonwealth did eventually make a serious effort to reform its political system, adopting in 1791 the Constitution of May 3, 1791, which historian Norman Davies calls the first of its kind in Europe. The revolutionary constitution recast the erstwhile Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth as a Polish-Lithuanian federal state with a hereditary monarchy, and abolished many of the deleterious features of the old system. The new constitution abolished the liberum veto and banned the szlachta as confederations, provided for a separation of powers among legislative, executive and judicial branches of government, established popular sovereignty, and extended political rights to include not only the nobility but the bourgeoisie, increased the rights of the peasantry, preserved religious tolerance. These reforms came too late, however, as the Commonwealth was immediately invaded from all sides by its neighbours, which were content to leave the Commonwealth alone as a weak buffer state, but reacted strongly to King Stanislaw August Poniatowski's and other reformers' attempts to strengthen the country. Russia feared the revolutionary implications of the May 3 Constitution's political reforms and the prospect of the Commonwealth regaining its position as a European power. Catherine the Great regarded the May Constitution as fatal to her influence and declared the Polish constitution Jacobinical. Grigory Alexandrovich Potemkin drafted the Act for the Targowica Confederation, referring to the constitution as the contagion of democratic ideas. Meanwhile, Prussia and Austria, also afraid of a strengthened Poland, used it as a pretext for further territorial expansion. Prussian minister Ewald Friedrich von Herzberg called the constitution a blow to the Prussian monarchy, fearing that strengthened Poland would once again dominate Prussia. In the end, the May 3 Constitution was never fully implemented, and the Commonwealth entirely ceased to exist only 4 years after the Constitution's adoption.